The massive throne room stretched out like a dark ocean. Its black walls seemed to swallow light itself. At the center sat a throne carved from a single piece of midnight stone, and on it sat the most powerful woman in 3 galaxies. Commander. Zara stood perfectly still before her mother. Her silver armor caught the dim light from floating crystals overhead. She had been summoned here after returning from her latest victory on the Outer Rim planets, but something felt different. This time the usual celebration was missing. Daughter, the Empress spoke, her voice echoing off the walls. Come closer. Zara walked forward, her boots clicking against the polished floor. She had done this walk 1,000 times before, but today her stomach felt tight with worry. Her mother only called her here when there was trouble. Big trouble. The Empress leaned forward slightly. Her golden eyes seemed to glow in the darkness. We have a problem. A small human colony on a distant world has been refusing our generous offers for months now. Zara raised an eyebrow. Human colonies usually gave up after the first show of force. They were practical people who understood when they were outmatched. What kind of offers, Mother? Everything they could possibly want. Advanced technology. Medical supplies that could extend their lives by decades. Protective shields for their cities. Even governing rights over their entire star system. The Empress's fingers drummed against the armrest of her throne. Their leader has turned down every single offer. This was strange indeed. Zara had studied human psychology extensively. They were driven by survival instincts and the desire for comfort. A smart leader would have jumped at even half of what her mother had offered. Perhaps they don't trust us, Zara suggested carefully. Trust has nothing to do with it. This Captain Chen seems to operate by some code we don't understand. Our intelligence reports say he actually throws away our gift packages without even opening them. Zara felt a spark of curiosity. In all her years of conquest and negotiation, she had never encountered someone who refused to even look at what was being offered. What do you want me to do? The Empress stood up slowly. Even at her age, she moved with the grace of a creditor. I want you to go there personally, use all of your talents. This human male needs to understand that resistance is pointless. Zara nodded. She had handled difficult negotiations before. Men, especially military leaders, usually had predictable weaknesses. Pride, desire for power, physical attraction. She had mastered the art of finding and exploiting these weaknesses decades ago. How long do I have? She asked. As long as it takes. But Zara... The Empress moved closer, placing a cold hand on her daughter's shoulder. This cannot end in failure. That colony sits on the edge of rebel territory. If word spreads that humans can successfully resist us, it will encourage others to try the same. The weight of responsibility settled on Zara's shoulders like a heavy cloak. She understood the bigger picture. One small act of defiance could spark a rebellion that might spread across multiple star systems. Millions of lives hung in the balance. Understand, Mother. What can you tell me about this Captain Chen? The Empress walked to a wall where holographic displays showed images and data files. With a wave of her hand, a 3-dimensional image appeared in the air. It showed a man in his 30s with dark hair and steady eyes. He wore a simple military uniform with very few decorative elements. Age 34, former Earth Defense Force officer. Led several successful evacuation missions during the Centauri crisis. No family that we know of. No obvious vices or addictions. Lives simply, despite having resources for luxury. Zara studied the image carefully. The man's face showed intelligence and determination, but also something else. A kind of inner peace that seemed unusual for someone in his position. Most military leaders she had dealt with carried stress and worry in their expressions. His psychological profile, she asked. That's where it gets interesting. The Empress manipulated the display to show behavioral analysis charts. He seems genuinely motivated by protecting his people rather than personal gain. Makes decisions, slowly but sticks to them completely. Has never been known to change his mind once he's committed to a course of action. This was going to be more challenging than usual. Zara's typical approach relied on finding what someone wanted and then offering it to them in exchange for cooperation. But how do you negotiate with someone who doesn't seem to want anything for themselves? There must be something, Zara said, more to herself than to her mother. Everyone has desires. Everyone has fears. Find them, the Empress commanded. Use whatever methods necessary. Your ship leaves within the hour. As Zara turned to leave, her mother called out one more time, and daughter. Remember that failure is not an option. Too much depends on this. Walking through the corridors toward her private chambers, Zara felt both excited and concerned. She had never failed a mission before, but she had also never faced someone quite like this, Captain Chen. His file suggested someone who operated by principles rather than practical considerations. She began planning her approach while packing her diplomatic wardrobe. First impressions would be crucial. She would need to appear as both a reasonable negotiator and an attractive woman. Most men found it difficult to maintain their guard when dealing with someone they found appealing. Her personal assistant brought her the latest intelligence reports about the human colony. It was smaller than she had expected, only about 10,000 people. They had built their settlement near a large freshwater lake and had established successful farming operations. By all accounts, they lived peaceful, productive lives. The more she read, the more puzzled she became. These people weren't struggling or desperate. They had built something good for themselves. Why would their leader risk it all by refusing reasonable offers from a superior force? As her ship lifted off from the imperial capital, Zara found herself looking forward to meeting this mysterious human captain. She had solved puzzles before, and she would solve this one too. After all, everyone had a price. It was just a matter of finding the right currency. But somewhere in the back of her mind, a small voice wondered what kind of person could build such loyalty among their people that an entire colony would risk destruction rather than accept safety. It was a question that would soon change everything she thought she knew about strength, leadership, and what it meant to truly care for others. The stars stretched out before her ship as it jumped to hyperspace, carrying her toward a meeting that would transform not just her mission, but her entire understanding of what it meant to be truly powerful. Zara's ship landed on the outskirts of the human colony, just as the sun was setting. She had spent 3 days traveling through hyperspace, using the time to study every detail about Captain Chen and his people. She had memorized his daily routines, his speech patterns, even his favorite foods. No detail was too small when planning a perfect approach. The colony looked nothing like the military settlements she had expected. Instead of concrete bunkers and defensive walls, she saw gardens and comfortable homes. Children played in the streets while adults worked together on various projects. It looked more like a peaceful town than a military outpost. Zara had chosen her appearance carefully for this first meeting. She wore a flowing blue dress that seemed to shimmer in the fading light. Her silver hair was styled to catch attention, and she had applied subtle makeup that enhanced her natural features. The dress was elegant but not overly revealing, designed to intrigue without seeming inappropriate. 2 human guards met her at the colony's entrance. They were polite but professional, clearly well-trained despite their relaxed demeanor. One of them, a woman with short brown hair, smiled warmly. "Commander Veltar, Captain Chun is expecting you. He asked me to escort you to his office." As they walked through the colony streets, Zara observed everything. The buildings were well-maintained but simple. People greeted each other warmly and seemed genuinely happy. There was no sign of the fear or tension she usually saw in settlements facing potential conquest. "Your people seem very content," Zara commented to her escort. "We have a good life here," the guard replied. "Captain Chen makes sure everyone has what they need. He says a leader's job is to serve the people, not the other way around." This was already different from what Zara expected. Most military leaders, she knew, believed in strict hierarchy and absolute obedience. The idea of a commander serving his people seemed backwards to her. They reached a modest building near the center of town. Unlike the imperial palaces Zara was used to, this command center looked more like an office than a seat of power. The guard knocked gently on a door marked with Chen's name and rank. "Come in," called a voice from inside. Zara stepped into the room and immediately felt off balance. She had prepared for many possible scenarios, but not this one. Captain Chen sat behind a simple wooden desk, reading reports on a tablet. When he looked up, his expression showed mild curiosity rather than the usual male reactions she was accustomed to. "Commander Veltar," he said, standing up to greet her, "thank you for coming all this way. Please, have a seat." He gestured to a comfortable chair across from his desk. Zara noticed that he looked directly at her face when speaking, not letting his eyes wander as most men did when meeting her for the first time. His handshake was firm but brief, professional rather than lingering. "I understand your people have some proposals for our colony," Chen continued, settling back into his chair. "Though I have to admit, I'm curious why they sent their most skilled negotiator for such a small settlement." The comment caught Zara completely off guard. No one had ever acknowledged her reputation so directly before. Most people either tried to impress her or were too intimidated to speak freely. Chen seemed neither impressed nor intimidated. "You know who I am?" she asked. "Of course," Commander Zara Veltar, daughter of the Empress, victor of 12 major campaigns, diplomatic specialist. He smiled slightly. Your reputation precedes you, though I notice your people seem to think I'm more dangerous than I actually am. Zara felt her carefully planned opening speech dissolving in her mind. She had expected to deal with someone who would either try to intimidate her or be overwhelmed by her presence. Instead, she found herself facing someone who seemed genuinely interested in having a normal conversation. My mother has authorized me to offer your colony unprecedented benefits in exchange for joining our empire, she said, falling back on formal diplomatic language. What kind of benefits? Chen asked, but his tone suggested he was asking out of politeness rather than real interest. Zara launched into her prepared presentation. Advanced medical technology that could eliminate most diseases, defensive systems that would protect the colony from any threat, educational resources that would give their children opportunities beyond anything they could imagine, trade agreements that would make them wealthy beyond their dreams. Throughout her speech, Chen listened attentively, asking thoughtful questions about details and implications. But Zara could see that none of it was affecting him the way it should. He seemed to be evaluating each offer not for what it could give him personally, but for how it might impact his people. These are generous offers, he said when she finished. But I have some concerns, such as, well, joining your empire would mean giving up our independence. Our people came here to build something of their own, to make their own choices about how they wanted to live. Would we still have that freedom? Zara hesitated. The honest answer was no, but she had been trained to present imperial control in more appealing terms. You would have the freedom to live peacefully under imperial protection, but not the freedom to govern ourselves or make our own decisions about trade, defense, or social policies. The empire has found that unified policies work best for everyone's benefit. Chen nodded thoughtfully. I can understand that perspective, but our people value self-determination very highly. They left comfortable lives on other worlds, specifically to build something independent here. Zara tried a different approach. Captain, surely you realize that remaining independent leaves you vulnerable. There are dangerous forces in this part of the galaxy, pirates, hostile aliens, resource conflicts. The Empire can protect you from all of that. We've managed to protect ourselves so far, Chen replied calmly, and we've found that most conflicts can be avoided through honest communication and fair dealing. Frustrated, Zara leaned forward slightly, allowing her natural charisma to intensify. But why struggle with these challenges when you could have security, prosperity, and peace guaranteed? For the first time, Chun's expression became more serious. Because some things are worth struggling for. Our ancestors didn't explore the stars just to find comfortable places to be controlled by others. They wanted to create something better. Zara found herself genuinely curious despite her growing frustration. What do you mean by something better? A society where leaders earn respect through service rather than demanding it through power. Where people cooperate because they choose to, not because they're forced to. Where everyone has a voice in decisions that affect their lives. As Chen spoke, Zara noticed something strange happening to her. She found herself actually listening to his words rather than just waiting for an opening to counter his arguments. His ideas were foreign to everything she had been taught, but there was something compelling about his quiet conviction. Their conversation continued for over 2 hours, far longer than Zara had planned. By the time she left his office, she felt more confused than she had in years. Captain Chen had been polite, thoughtful, and completely immune to every negotiation technique she had tried. Walking back to her ship under the stars, Zara realized she was looking forward to their next meeting. For the first time in her career, she had met someone who genuinely puzzled her, and despite her frustration, she found the puzzle fascinating rather than simply annoying. Tomorrow, she would try a different approach. 3 weeks had passed since Zara's arrival at the human colony, and she was no closer to completing her mission than on the first day. What bothered her most was that she didn't seem to mind. Each morning she found herself looking forward to her conversations with Captain Chen, even though they always ended in the same polite disagreement. She had tried everything in her diplomatic toolkit. Logical arguments about the benefits of joining the Empire, subtle threats about the dangers of remaining independent, even carefully crafted emotional appeals about the safety of his people. Nothing worked. Chen listened to everything with genuine interest, asked thoughtful questions, and then quietly maintained his position. On this particular morning, Zara decided to try a completely different approach. Instead of going directly to Chen's office, she would spend time with the colonists themselves. Perhaps understanding his people better would give her insight into their leader. She started at the colony's medical center, where Dr. Park, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, was treating patients. Zara had expected to find people suffering from lack of advanced medical technology. Instead, she found a clean, well-organized facility where everyone seemed to receive excellent care. We don't have all the fancy equipment from the core worlds, Dr. Park explained as she showed Zara around. But we've learned to make do with what we have. Captain Chen always says that caring for people is more important than having the latest gadgets. But surely you would benefit from Imperial medical technology, Zara asked. Of course we would. But at what cost? Dr. Park paused in her work to look directly at Zara. We've heard stories from other colonies that joined your empire. Better technology, yes, but they lose control over how it's used. Their medical decisions get made by bureaucrats light years away who never meet the patients. This wasn't the response Zara had expected. She had assumed people would jump at the chance for better medical care, regardless of the political implications. Her next stop was the colony school, where children of various ages learned together in small groups. The teacher, Mr. Rodriguez, welcomed her warmly and invited her to observe a history lesson. Today we're learning about the great explorers who first left Earth, he told the children. Can anyone tell me why they took such dangerous journeys to unknown worlds? A young girl with bright eyes raised her hand eagerly. Because they wanted to be free to make their own choices. That's right, Anna. They could have stayed safe at home, but they chose the risks of exploration because they believed freedom was worth fighting for. Zara felt uncomfortable as she listened. The lesson wasn't just about ancient history, it was clearly designed to reinforce the colony's current situation. These children were being taught that independence was more valuable than safety or comfort. After the class, Mr. Rodriguez walked with her toward the agricultural section of the colony. You know, he said conversationally, Captain Chen could have accepted your empire's offers and made life easier for all of us. But he asked us what we wanted instead of deciding for us. That's the kind of leader worth following, even if it means living with less advanced technology and greater risks, Zara asked. Especially then, what good is a comfortable cage? That afternoon, Zara found herself helping in the colony's gardens. She hadn't planned to work, but when she saw people struggling with a broken irrigation system, she offered her technical knowledge to help fix it. Working alongside the colonists gave her a different perspective on their daily lives. The work was satisfying in a way she hadn't expected. Back home, everything was done by servants or automated systems. Here, people took pride in building and maintaining things with their own hands. They worked together naturally, helping each other without being ordered or supervised. You know, said Tom, an elderly farmer working beside her. Captain Chen could have built himself a fancy mansion with all the technology your people offered. Instead, he lives in the same simple quarters as everyone else. Never asks us to do anything he wouldn't do himself. That seems inefficient, Zara commented, though she wasn't entirely sure she believed it anymore. Maybe by Imperial standards, but it builds trust. When people know their leader shares their struggles, they're willing to make sacrifices for the common good. As the sun began to set, Zara walked to the colony's central square where people gathered each evening to share meals and socialize. She watched families laughing together, neighbors helping each other with various projects, and children playing games that seemed to transcend cultural and age boundaries. Captain Chen appeared beside her, carrying 2 cups of something that smelled like herbal tea. Penny for your thoughts, he said, offering her one of the cups. Your people seem genuinely happy, Zara admitted, accepting the warm drink. I've visited many worlds, but I've rarely seen this kind of contentment. They have something worth protecting, Chen replied simply. Not just their lives or their comfort, but their right to choose how they want to live those lives. Zara sipped the tea, finding it surprisingly pleasant. My mother would say they're naive, that they're choosing hardship over security because they don't understand the real dangers of the galaxy. Maybe we are naive, Chen acknowledged. But we'd rather face dangers as free people than live safely as subjects. There's a difference between existing and truly living. They stood in comfortable silence for several minutes, watching the evening activities around them. Zara found herself relaxing in a way she hadn't in years. There was something peaceful about this place that had nothing to do with the absence of conflict and everything to do with the presence of genuine community. Can I ask you something personal? Chen said eventually. Zara tensed slightly. Of course. Are you happy with your life in the Empire? The question hit her like a physical blow. No one had ever asked her that before. Happiness wasn't a concept that came up much in Imperial society. Success, power, efficiency, loyalty. These were the measures by which people were judged. But happiness, double quotes, she started, then stopped. The honest answer was that she had never really thought about it. She had been trained for her role since childhood, taught to find satisfaction in completing missions and serving the Empire. But, had she ever been truly happy? I serve my people and my family, she said finally. Personal happiness is less important than duty. But what if they didn't have to be separate? Chen asked gently. What if serving others could also bring personal fulfillment? That night, alone in her ship, Zara found herself staring at the stars through her view. She had been in hundreds of similar situations before, but this felt different. For the first time in her life, she was questioning not just her tactics, but her entire purpose. She thought about her conversations with the colonists, their obvious love for their leader, and Chen's quiet confidence in the face of impossible odds. She thought about her own life, the missions, the conquests, the constant pressure to succeed at any cost. Most disturbing of all, she realized she was no longer thinking about Chen as a target to be manipulated. She was thinking about him as a person whose opinions she genuinely valued. Somewhere in the past 3 weeks, the hunter had indeed become the hunted, and she was only just beginning to understand what that meant. The emergency alert woke Zara at dawn. Her ship's communication system was flashing with urgent messages from the Imperial fleet. She stumbled to the control panel, still wearing her sleep clothes, and activated the secure channel. Her mother's face appeared on the screen, and Zara immediately knew she was in serious trouble. The Empress looked furious in a way that made Zara's blood run cold. 6 weeks, her mother said without any greeting. 6 weeks you have been on that pathetic little world, and what do you have to show for it? Nothing. Mother, I'm making progress. Captain Chen is beginning to what? Fall in love with you, because that's what our intelligence reports suggest is happening. Except it appears to be working in the wrong direction. Zara felt heat rise in her cheeks. She had been so careful to keep her growing feelings hidden, even from herself. How had Imperial spies detected what she had barely admitted to herself? That's not true, she protested weakly. Isn't it? You've been seen working in their gardens, eating meals with their families, even helping to repair their equipment. That doesn't sound like diplomatic negotiation to me. It sounds like you're playing house with the enemy. The words stung because they contained enough truth to hurt. Zara had been spending more and more time just living among the colonists, telling herself it was all part of understanding them better. But deep down, she knew it was because she had found something in their community that she had never experienced before. I need more time, she said. Chen is different from other targets. Traditional methods won't work on him. Time is exactly what you don't have. The Empress leaned forward, her golden eyes blazing. I'm arriving tomorrow with the full battle fleet. This little experiment of yours ends now. Zara's heart dropped into her stomach. What are you planning to do? What I should have done weeks ago. I'm going to give this Captain Chen one final choice. Surrender completely, or watch his precious colony burn. And you, my dear daughter, are going to execute him personally when he refuses. The screen went black, leaving Zara staring at her own reflection in the dark monitor. Her hands were shaking, and she realized she was breathing too fast. The thought of hurting Chen, or any of the colonists she had come to know, made her feel physically sick. She had to warn them, but how could she explain without revealing how much she had changed? How could she tell them that their trusted negotiator was actually their executioner? Zara dressed quickly and ran through the early morning streets toward the command center. The colony was just waking up, with people beginning their daily routines. Children were walking to school, farmers heading to their fields, and neighbors greeting each other warmly. All of it would be gone tomorrow if she couldn't find a way to prevent it. She found Captain Chen in his office, reviewing supply reports. Over his morning coffee, he looked up when she burst through the door, immediately noting her distressed expression. Zara, what's wrong? She had never heard him use her first name before. The simple intimacy of it almost broke her resolve completely. We need to talk privately. Chen gestured for her to sit, but she couldn't. Instead, she paced back and forth in front of his desk, trying to find words for something that couldn't be explained. My mother is coming, she finally said. Tomorrow, with the entire Imperial battle fleet. Chen set down his coffee cup carefully. I see. And what does that mean for us? It means your time for peaceful negotiation is over. She's going to demand complete surrender. If you refuse, Zara couldn't finish the sentence. If I refuse, she'll destroy the colony. Chen completed calmly. Yes, and she's ordered me to execute you personally. The words hung in the air between them like a physical barrier. Chen studied her face for a long moment, and Zara wondered what he saw there. Fear, the desperate hope that he would somehow find a solution she couldn't see. And will you, he asked quietly, execute me? It was the same question he had asked weeks ago, but everything had changed since then. Now Zara knew the answer, and it terrified her. I don't know, she whispered. I don't know anything anymore. Chen stood up and walked around his desk to stand in front of her. He was close enough that she could see the concern in his eyes, close enough that she could smell the soap he used and the coffee on his breath. What don't you know? He asked gently. I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know what I believe. I don't know if everything I was taught about strength and leadership and duty is wrong. The words poured out of her like water through a broken dam. I don't know why the thought of hurting you makes me want to die. Chen reached out slowly and took her hands in his. His touch was warm and steady, anchoring her to something solid when everything else felt like it was falling apart. Zara, he said softly, what do you want to do? I want to protect you. I want to protect all of them, but I don't know how. My mother has 50 warships. You have one small colony with no real defenses. There's no way to win this fight. Maybe. Winning isn't about having the most ships. What else could it be about? Being willing to stand up for what's right, even when you can't win. Sometimes the most important battles are the ones where victory isn't possible. Zara pulled her hands free and resumed pacing. You don't understand. This isn't some philosophical debate. Tomorrow real people are going to die. Your people, and there's nothing either of us can do to stop it. There's always something we can do, even if it's just choosing how we face what's coming. Choice, Zara laughed bitterly. That's what this all comes down to, isn't it? You keep talking about choice like it's some magical solution to everything, because it is, Chen said simply. Not magical, but powerful. Every person who ever changed the world started by making a choice to do something different. Zara stopped pacing and looked at him directly. What choice am I supposed to make? Betray everything I've ever known? Turn against my own mother and empire? Become an exile with nowhere to go? I can't tell you what choice to make. But I can tell you that whatever you decide, it should be something you can live with. And what if I choose to follow my orders? What if I choose duty over whatever this is between us? Chen's expression grew sad but understanding. Then I'll accept that choice. I won't like it, but I'll respect it. That's what freedom means, the right to make your own decisions, even when others disagree with them. Zara felt tears building behind her eyes. She had never cried over a mission before, had never felt so torn between competing loyalties. Everything had been so much simpler when she believed that strength meant never questioning orders. I need time to think, she said. Of course, but Zara. Chen waited until she looked at him again. Whatever you decide tomorrow, I want you to know that these past weeks have been the best of my life. Getting to know you, the real you, not the Imperial Commander, has been a gift I'll treasure no matter what happens. As Zara walked back to her ship through the peaceful morning streets, she realized that Captain Chen had just done something no one else in her life had ever done. He had told her that her happiness mattered, that she as a person was valuable beyond her usefulness to others. Tomorrow, she would have to choose between the life she had always known and a future she could barely imagine, and for the first time in her life, she truly didn't know what she was going to do. The Imperial warships arrived at dawn like dark storm clouds filling the sky. 50 massive vessels took positions around the planet, their weapons clearly visible even from the ground. The message was unmistakable. Resistance was hopeless. Zara stood at her bedroom window, watching the ships she had once felt proud to serve alongside. Now they looked like instruments of destruction pointed at people she had come to love. She had spent the entire night awake, going back and forth between her duty as an Imperial commander and her feelings as a woman who had found something worth protecting. The communication device on her nightstand buzzed with an incoming message. Her mother's voice filled the room with cold authority. All colonists will gather in the central square in 1 hour for the final negotiations. You will be there in full ceremonial armor, ready to carry out your orders. Do not disappoint me again, daughter. Zara stared at her reflection in the mirror as she put on the silver armor she had worn to countless victories. But today it felt like a costume for a play she no longer wanted to perform in. The woman looking back at her seemed like a stranger, someone caught between two worlds with no clear path forward. Walking through the colony streets toward the square, Zara saw colonists preparing for what might be their final hours. But instead of panic or despair, she witnessed something remarkable. Families were staying close together, neighbors were helping each other, and there was a quiet dignity in how they faced the impossible. Situation. Dr. Park waved to her from the medical center steps. Whatever happens today, the doctor called out, thank you for the time you gave us to get to know you. Mr. Rodriguez nodded respectfully as she passed the school. The children asked me to tell you that you'll always have friends here, no matter what. Even Tom, the elderly farmer, managed a smile. You're welcome in our gardens any time, Commander. Good soil doesn't judge where someone comes from. Their kindness made Zara's decision even harder. These people had accepted her despite knowing she was sent to conquer them. They had shown her what real strength looked like, not the power to force others into submission, but the courage to remain true to your values even when facing destruction. The central square was already crowded when Zara arrived. Colonists stood in small groups, holding hands and speaking quietly among themselves. On one side of the square, her mother waited with a group of Imperial guards. The Empress wore her most intimidating battle armor, designed to make enemies feel small and powerless. Captain Chen stood alone in the center of the square, wearing his simple uniform with no decorations or weapons. He looked calm despite being surrounded by enough firepower to destroy his entire world. When he saw Zara, he nodded slightly, not the formal greeting of a diplomat, but the gentle acknowledgement of a friend. People of this colony, the Empress announced, her voice amplified to reach everyone present. You have been offered the generous protection of our empire multiple times. Your leader has rejected these offers, putting all of your lives at risk. Today that ends. The square fell completely silent. Even the children seemed to understand that something momentous was happening. Captain Chen, the Empress continued, you have one final opportunity to surrender your colony and accept imperial rule. Choose wisely. Chen stepped forward slightly, and Zara's heart began beating faster. She knew what his answer would be, and she knew what her mother expected her to do about it. Empress, Chen said clearly, I appreciate the offers your empire has made, but my people came to this world to build something of their own. We cannot accept protection that costs us our freedom to make our own choices. The Empress nodded as if she had expected this response. Then you have chosen destruction over wisdom. Commander Veltar stepped forward. Zara's legs felt like stone as she walked to the center of the square. Her hand found the energy weapon at her side, but she couldn't bring herself to draw it. Around her, she could feel hundreds of eyes watching, waiting to see what kind of person she truly was. Execute this rebel, her mother commanded. Show his people what happens to those who defy the Empire. Zara drew her weapon slowly, her hand trembling as she pointed it at Chen. He stood perfectly still, making no attempt to defend himself or plead for mercy. His eyes met hers, and she saw no fear there, only understanding and something that looked like forgiveness. I can't, she whispered, so quietly that only Chen could hear her. Do it now, the Empress shouted. But instead of firing, Zara lowered her weapon and turned to face her mother. No, the single word seemed to echo across the silent square. Gasps came from both the colonists and the Imperial guards. No one had ever seen an Imperial commander directly disobey the Empress. What did you say? Her mother asked, her voice deadly quiet. I said no. Zara's voice grew stronger with each word. This man has shown me what real leadership looks like. He serves his people instead of forcing them to serve him. He leads through inspiration instead of fear. I won't destroy that. The Empress's face contorted with rage. Then you are no daughter of mine. Guards, execute them both. But something unexpected happened. Several Imperial guards hesitated, their weapons not quite pointing at Zara and Chen. In the weeks of observing the colony, some of them had seen the same thing Zara had seen. They had watched a leader who ate the same food as his people, lived in the same simple quarters, and never asked anyone to do something he wouldn't do himself. Captain Chen stepped beside Zara, and his calm presence seemed to spread through the square. Then Dr. Park moved to join them, followed by Mr. Rodriguez, then Tom and his family. More and more colonists stepped forward, creating a human wall around their leader and the Imperial commander who had chosen to protect them. Most surprising of all, several Imperial soldiers slowly lowered their weapons. They were tired of conquering people who just wanted to live in peace. They were tired of serving an empire that ruled through fear instead of earning loyalty through care. The Empress found herself facing something she had never encountered before, a resistance built not on weapons or anger, but on the simple power of people choosing to stand together for what they believed was right. This is not over, she declared, but her voice lacked its usual authority. Faced with potential mutiny in her own ranks and a situation that couldn't be solved through force, she made a calculating decision to withdraw rather than risk losing control of her entire fleet. As the Imperial ships disappeared into hyperspace. Zara found herself surrounded by the very people she had been sent to conquer. They welcomed her not as a failed conqueror, but as someone who had chosen love over fear, hope over despair, and community over conquest. Standing in the square with Chun's hand in hers, Zara realized she had found something more valuable than any empire could offer. She had found a place where strength meant lifting others up instead of tearing them down, where leadership meant service instead of dominance, and where love was measured not by what you could take, but by what you were willing to give. The warrior, who had been sent to destroy, had instead been transformed by the very people she was meant to conquer, and in choosing love over duty, she had discovered that the greatest victories come not from defeating your enemies, but from having the courage to become the person you were meant to be.